Hey, tonight, we're stepping into one of the most mysterious and enchanting chapters of history. Britain, during the so-called Dark Ages, the legendary age often tied to King Arthur. So, settle in, maybe snuggle under a blanket or light a candle for atmosphere, and let this tale carry you centuries into the past. By the end, you'll have a whole new perspective on the struggles and marvels of this remarkable time. Imagine this. You awaken in 5th century Britain around the year 450. The air feels raw, untamed, fresher than anything you've ever breathed. A cool mist lingers just above the damp grass, and the faint smell of wood smoke drifts lazily through the breeze. You've arrived in an age of great transition, brimming with opportunity, but also heavy with danger. You stand upon a gentle rise, overlooking a small settlement nestled in a valley. Below you, modest thatched roof cottages are clustered together like mushrooms after rainfall. Thin trails of smoke curl upward from holes in their roofs. This is Britain, at a crossroads. The Roman legions, who once controlled the island, are gone, and the people who remain are left to fend for themselves. For nearly 4 centuries, Rome ruled this land. You know them, the soldiers in polished armor, the master builders who carved straight roads and constructed grand bathhouses where people once gossiped and soaked in warm waters. They brought stability, luxuries, and a taste of a lifestyle many had grown accustomed to. But now, the legions have marched away, summoned back to Rome, to deal with crises closer to home. About 40 years ago, a voice says beside you. You turn and see an elderly man with kind eyes and a face lined with years of hard living, leaning on a wooden staff. He gazes down at the village. I was only a boy when the last Roman soldiers sailed away. Some say Emperor Honorius told us to look after ourselves. Others claim it was Constantine who took our warriors for his own battles. However it happened, they left us behind. He gestures toward the fields below. The good news? We're still here, still farming, raising families, carrying on. The bad news? Without Roman protection, others have come, seeking to claim our lands. From the hilltop, you can see small plots of farmland, bordered by low stone walls. Sheep graze along the slopes. Men and women labor with simple wooden tools in the fields. The scene looks peaceful, but an unspoken tension hangs in the air, like the hush before a storm. When you ask who he is, the old man chuckles softly. They call me Caddock. I used to work stone, building Roman houses in Corinium. Now, I'm just an old man who remembers how things were. He invites you to join him on the walk down toward the village. As you follow him along the slope, he explains how life has changed. We still use what the Romans left behind. Why waste good walls and strong buildings? But the finer goods are harder to find. The pottery from Gaul, the olive oil from Hispania, the glass vessels that once filled our markets. Those ships rarely come now. When you finally reach the village, the difference from Roman towns is striking. Gone are the paved streets, laid out neatly in squares, the tiled roofs and sturdy stonework, the bustling forums and steamy bathhouses. This place feels humbler, more organic. The homes are round or rectangular, clustered in family groups. Most are simple, wooden frames plastered with wattle and daub, practical rather than grand. The homes here are built in the simplest of ways. Wooden frames are woven with sticks, then plastered over with a mix of mud, straw, and animal dung. The roofs are thickly thatched with reeds or straw, with a small opening at the top to let the smoke from the hearth drift out. Inside, there are no separate rooms like you might expect in modern houses. Instead, each dwelling is one large shared space where families cook, eat, sleep, and live together under a single roof. Come along, Kadok urges with a smile, motioning toward one of the larger huts at the heart of the village. Let's see if Branwen has baked her morning bread. As you step inside, you're greeted by warmth and the rich, earthy smell of bread baking over the fire. The floor beneath your feet is hard-packed earth, and at the center of the room a small fire crackles within a stone-lined pit. Smoke rises slowly toward the vent in the thatched ceiling. Around the edges of the room are wooden benches, shelves stacked with pottery jars, wooden bowls, and a few handmade tools. A woman with a long, gray-streaked braid looks up from the hearth. This is Branwen, the village healer and midwife, well respected by everyone here. Her face softens into a welcoming smile as she sees Kadok, and she waves you both toward the benches by the fire. Have you broken your fast yet? She asks, pulling a flat round of bread from the embers. She tears it into pieces, offering you a warm, fragrant chunk. The bread is coarse, made from barley rather than wheat, but when she drizzles a little honey from a clay jar across the top, the taste is comforting and sweet. Our guest has traveled from far away, Kadok explains. Branwen nods knowingly, as though meeting strangers from distant lands or even distant times is nothing out of the ordinary. You'll be wanting to know how we live, she says, settling down beside you. Our life is simple, but it is good. We plant barley and vegetables. We keep sheep for wool and meat. And we raise a few cattle. The forests give us game, honey, nuts, and berries when the seasons allow. You notice her clothing, a deep blue wool dress fastened at the shoulder with a bronze brooch, and a cloak for warmth. Around her neck hangs a leather cord with a small cross, a sign that Christianity, introduced during the Roman years, has taken root here. Branwen catches your glance. Some follow Christ, some keep faith with the old gods, and many of us, truth be told, honor both, just to be safe. As you eat, more villagers wander in, curious about the newcomer. Their clothes are practical, made of wool or linen, dyed with natural colors from plants, greens, yellows, reds, and blues. Men wear tunics and breeches, while the women wear long dresses. Leather shoes are common, though the youngest children dart around barefoot, giggling as they chase one another. A young man named Garand proudly tells you about his work. I'm a blacksmith, like my father before me, and his father before him. We can't craft the fancy goods the Romans once brought, but I can forge a strong blade or mend a plow that keeps the fields tilled. As you look around, you realize how much of Rome still lingers here. The villagers sprinkle Latin words into their Celtic tongue. Their pottery, though rougher, still carries echoes of Roman style. And when Branwen tends to a child's cut finger, she draws on a blend of herbal wisdom passed through generations and the medical knowledge once taught by Roman healers. Morning unfolds with work and rhythm. Women grind grain between heavy round stones, making flour for more bread. Men patch roofs with bundles of thatch, moving with an ease born of experience. Children scurry about, gathering eggs from chickens. Life here is steady, woven together by hard work, tradition, and the faint but lasting influence of a vanished empire. Between the houses, children scratch games into the dirt, while older boys herd sheep out toward the pastures. Yet life here isn't always so calm. As you help Kadok repair a wooden fence, his voice turns serious. That's why we build our villages on higher ground now, he explains, glancing toward the ditches and earthen banks surrounding the settlement. They give us warning when enemies approach. The good news is, we can see them coming. The bad news? They still come. Cadoc's tone grows heavier as he describes what has happened since the Romans departed. From across the eastern sea, the Saxons arrive, he says quietly. Tall, fierce men with axes and long knives. Some say our own chiefs invited a few to fight against the Picts and Scots raiding from the north. But now, they come in greater numbers, not just warriors, but families looking to claim our land. The worry in his words sinks into you, and it becomes clear why later generations would call this the Dark Ages. It wasn't that learning or culture had completely vanished, but rather that the stability of Rome had collapsed into uncertainty, and the land was caught in constant danger. Before you can respond, another voice cuts through the air, deep, steady, full of strength. You turn to see a tall young man with broad shoulders and sharp, intelligent eyes. Unlike most villagers, he wears a finely woven tunic, a cloak pinned with a silver brooch, and at his side hangs a sword of exceptional craftsmanship. This is Bedwyr, Cadoc says with respect. He rides with the warband of our king. Bedwyr inclines his head in greeting, then raises his voice to address the villagers who have begun to gather. I bring news, he announces. Our lord has won a great victory. The Saxon raiders have been driven back near Baden Hill. Their ships retreat to the sea. A cheer erupts around you, the people's relief almost tangible. The name Baden Hill sparks recognition in your mind. It is one of the rare historical battles later connected to the legendary King Arthur. Is your lord? You begin to ask, but Bedwyr has already moved toward Branwen's house, where the elders are assembling to hear his report. Come, Cadoc urges, guiding you to follow. You'll want to witness this. Inside Branwen's dwelling, extra benches have been brought in. The village's most respected figures sit in a circle. The blacksmith, a weathered farmer with hands like leather, an elderly woman wearing an ornate cloak pin that marks her as a person of rank, and several others. You and Cadoc take seats near the edge, while Bedwyr stands in the firelight's glow, his face etched with shadow. Our lord, he begins, the Bear of Britain, the Dux Bellorum, the leader of battles, has once again proven why the tribes chose him as High King. A shiver runs down your spine. The Bear of Britain. In Latin, the name would be Artus or Artorius, names that, over centuries, could transform into Arthur. Bedwyr's voice grows more intense. The Saxons came in 30 ships, landing near the old Roman fort at Portus Aderni. They burned 3 villages before our lord could rally his men, but rally them he did, calling warriors from every tribe, the Dumnoni, the Cornovi, the Dobuni, and more. As Bedwyr speaks, your imagination fills with the clash of battle, not the polished image from later medieval romances of shining knights and armored chargers, but something far grittier, closer to the truth. Warriors in leather and iron helmets, carrying round wooden shields, men wielding spears and swords, fighting on sturdy ponies, or standing shoulder to shoulder on foot. Tough, raw, and real. Our lord led the charge himself, Bedwyr declares with pride, his eyes alight with memory. His sword shone like lightning in the rain. The Saxons faltered, then broke, and those who could still stand fled back to their ships. You notice something curious. Edward never actually speaks the name of this Bear of Britain. Perhaps Arthur was a title adopted later, or perhaps the name was never spoken openly. Historians would one day argue whether Arthur was a single man, a combination of several leaders, or nothing more than legend. But here, In this village, the people believe. To them, their protector is real, as tangible as the bread in their hands or the fire warming their homes. When the formal announcement ends, the gathering relaxes into clusters of smaller conversations. Villagers pepper Bedwyr with questions. Yes, he replies, our lord's stronghold at Cadbury is being fortified with new earthworks. No, the Saxon chief Ayala has not been captured, but he has fallen back to his settlements in the east. And yes, he adds, scanning the eager young men, any loyal warrior with his own horse and weapon will be welcomed into the High King's warband. As evening falls, the village readies a feast in celebration. 2 geese roast slowly over the communal fire pit, their fat sizzling in the flames. Women set down loaves of barley bread, steaming bowls of pea pottage, and jars of ale brewed from fermented grain. The ale is weaker than the drinks you may know, but in a world where rivers and streams often carry sickness, it is far safer, and it provides strength for long days of labor. To modernize, the meal might seem plain, but here it is abundance, a chance to rejoice together. Laughter rings out, mugs are raised, and as the night deepens, someone brings forth a small harp. Songs follow, some in the native British tongue, some in Latin. They sing of past battles, of Roman glory, of saints who brought the Christian faith, and of the old gods of the hills and rivers, whom many still quietly honor. At one point, Bedwyr settles beside you. His gaze is sharp, almost probing. You're not from any tribe I know, he says slowly. Your speech, your manner, they're different, but Caddoc vouches for you, and his word carries weight. You try to guide the conversation toward his mysterious lord, this figure who may or may not be Arthur. My lord is a man of 2 worlds, Bedwyr answers thoughtfully. His grandfather was Roman, a cavalry commander. His mother's bloodline ties back to the Dubuni kings. He was taught by Christian monks, yet he still honors the wisdom of the old ways. He has united tribes that once fought against each other, calling them together under one banner to resist the Saxons. Bedwyr pauses, taking a slow sip of ale before continuing. He is not a king in the old fashion, ruling only by birth. The chieftains chose him for his judgment in council and his courage in battle. He listens to many warriors, priests, even the druids who guard ancient knowledge. You hesitate, then ask about the legendary images that echo through later centuries. Camelot, a round table of knights, the wizard Merlin. Bedwyr frowns in puzzlement. My lord holds his court at Cadbury Hill Fort, he says firmly. A strong place, the ramparts of the ancients, strengthened again with timber and earth. As for a round table, he chuckles. Our lord does insist that when the tribal leaders meet, they sit in a circle, none higher than another, none claiming precedence. Perhaps that's what you mean. But when you mention Merlin, Bedwyr's face hardens. His tone grows more serious, almost guarded. There's a wise man who counsels my lord, Bedwyr says at last, lowering his voice. Merlin, he is called. Some say he is a Christian monk, trained in Rome. Others whisper that he is one of the last druids. He knows the stars, the healing herbs, the histories, and the bloodlines of the tribes, but a wizard. Bedwyr shakes his head. The priests of Christ would call such talk dangerous, even sinful. The evening wears on, and the Chilleratan slowly quiets. Children doze in their parents' laps. The fire dwindles to glowing embers, and soft voices drift into silence. Kadok finds you and lays a hand on your shoulder. Come, he says gently. You'll sleep at my house tonight. He leads you to his small dwelling on the edge of the village and shows you to a straw-filled pallet covered in woolen blankets. Rest well. Tomorrow, if you wish, you can ride with Bedwyr to the fortress of our Lord. Perhaps there you'll find the answers you seek. You settle onto the bedding, surprised at its warmth and comfort. Outside, the night whispers with the sounds of life. A dog barking faintly, the low murmur of cattle, the hush of wind rustling through the thatch. Your mind drifts over the day, the people, their struggles, their hopes, for all the talk of the Dark Ages. These villagers want what humans in every age have sought: safety, food, family, meaning. Yet their world is shifting, the old Roman order gone, new dangers pressing in, and new possibilities emerging, like mist curling through the valleys. From this soil, the clash of Britons and Saxons, the blending of Roman and Celtic traditions, the tension between Christianity and older faiths. The legend of King Arthur would one day take root. Later, storytellers would weave in shining armor, courtly love, magical swords, and quests for holy relics. But here, tonight, you have glimpsed a reality, rough, human, alive, a reality that might be the seed of the myth. The warmth of the blankets pulls you down into sleep. Your last thought before drifting off is simple but comforting. Even in so-called dark ages, there are always lights burning. You wake to the gentle rhythm of village life, the distant ring of the blacksmith's hammer, the murmur of voices, the soft lowing of cattle. A beam of sunlight filters through the smoke hole in Kadok's roof, casting a golden stripe across the earthen floor. For a moment, you hover between two worlds, your own and this ancient one. Kadok is already awake, feeding the small fire at the hearth. Good morning, he says with a smile. Bedwyr leaves for the fortress after we break our fast. If you still mean to travel with him, best get ready. Outside, the air is crisp and impossibly clean, untouched by factories or engines. The sky seems bluer than you've ever seen, and the sense of earth, smoke, and growing things fill your lungs. Here, people rise and sleep with the sun. No clocks tick, no lamps extend the night. Only the rhythm of daylight and darkness guides their days. At the village center, neighbors share their morning meal. Leftover bread, a thin porridge of barley, a handful of early berries. Bedwyr is already there, speaking with a young man eager to join his journey. When he notices you, he inclines his head. Ah, our visitor, he says warmly. Kadok tells me you wish to travel with me to my lord's stronghold. And so, your path into the heart of legend begins. We gladly welcome those who come in peace and carry tidings from far, Bedwyr says firmly, his voice carrying quiet authority. The young man at his side is introduced as Gawain, and a name sends a shiver through you. Could this be the seed of the legendary Sir Gawain of later tales? This Gawain, though, is no armored knight from storybooks. He is a strong youth, of perhaps 18, clad in simple woolen garments, with a short sword at his belt and a wooden shield slung across his back. He has chosen to join our Lord's war band, Bedwyr explains. His father was a warrior before him, and the boy shows skill with spear and blade. Soon, preparations for departure are complete. Villagers gather to see you off. Brenwyn presses a small pouch of dried herbs into your hands. For strength on the road, she says kindly, her eyes warm with the wisdom of years. Caddock clasps your arm in the grip of warriors. Perhaps our paths will cross again, he says. May the gods, or God, watch over you until that day. And so your journey begins, along worn trackways, winding through valleys and wooded hills. We'll meet horses at the next settlement. Bedwyr explains. Our Lord stations mounts there, ready for messengers and riders. As you walk, the countryside of 5th century Britain stretches around you, familiar in shape, yet strange in character. The hills and meadows are the same as in your own time, but the forests are vast, deeper, and more alive. Great stretches of oak, ash, birch, and hazel dominate the land, teeming with deer, wild boar, wolves, and countless birds. The forest gives us much, Bedwyr remarks, noticing your gaze. Wood for our homes and hearths, game for our tables, honey from the bees, nuts and berries in their season. The monks say their God made the forest for man's use. The old ways remind us. He glances at the trees. We are part of it, not its masters. Now and then, the trees open onto fields where farmers labor with simple tools, wooden plows, sometimes tipped with iron or pulled by sturdy oxen. Wooden rakes and hoes lean against earthen banks. Men bend low with sickles, reaping grain beneath the sun. The fields are small, irregularly shaped, bordered by stone walls or ridges of earth. The best lands are farmed in common, Gawain explains. Each family tends its strip, but we all share in the plowing and harvesting. You notice crops not often grown in your own time: barley, spelt, rye, oats, alongside a little wheat. Between the plots, fallow land is left open for grazing sheep and the smaller, sturdy cattle of this age. By midday, the group pauses beside a clear stream. You sit on the grass to share Branwen's provisions: hard bread, dried meat, and a clay pot of honey. The sweet richness lingers as Bedwyr gestures toward the plants growing by the water's edge. That one, water mint, he says, pointing, good for stomach troubles. And the white flowers there, that's meadowsweet. The healers use it for fevers and pains, he adds with a faint smile. Our Lord's advisor, Myrddin, knows every plant and its use. Some call him a magician, but he insists it is simply old wisdom handed down through time. The mention stirs your curiosity. Could this Myrddin be the man behind the Merlin of legend? You ask cautiously, and Bedwyr nods. Myrddin was born in the north, among the Votadini, he says. His mother was a wise woman, his father a bard who knew the old tales. When the priests of Christ came, Myrddin learned their teachings too. Their writing, their knowledge of faraway lands, carries both traditions within him. Some whisper that Myrddin once studied in the great library at Barkham, which you know as York, before Saxon raiders overran the city. They're true, who explain the remarkable mixture of wisdom he carries, the ancient Celtic lore of druids, blended with the writings and learning of Christian scholars. Perhaps it was this very fusion that later transformed the historical Myrddin into the legendary Merlin of story and song. This was a time of transition, when old and new beliefs wove together into something unique, a culture, both Celtic and Christian, rooted in tradition, yet open to change. By midday, your small band reaches a larger settlement where horses wait. These are not the towering chargers of later medieval knights, but smaller, sturdier animals, much like modern ponies. They are tough and sure-footed, perfect for the rough tracks and uneven ground of Dark Age Britain. Once mounted, your pace quickens. You follow the remains of an old Roman road, its gravel and stone causeway still holding after generations of neglect. Straight, purposeful, it cuts through the land like a scar. The Romans built well, Bedwyr admits, glancing at the firm stones beneath the hooves. Their roads, their walls, their forts, many still endure. My lord says we should take what was wise in their ways, while keeping the best of our own traditions. As you ride, Bedwyr gestures toward landmarks scattered across the countryside, the outline of an ancient hill fort from before the Roman conquest, the broken walls of a Roman villa, its stones now carted off to build cottages, and a sacred spring where offerings still lie, Christian crosses laid beside older Celtic tokens, a striking reminder of a world in cultural transformation. By late afternoon, the path climbs a ridge that opens onto a sweeping view of the countryside. Ahead, a great hill dominates the horizon, its summit encircled by terraced earthworks. Even from a distance, you can see movement along the ramparts, figures walking the walls, guards keeping watch. Cadbury, Bedwyr says with unmistakable pride, the stronghold of our Lord, the Bear of Britain. As you draw closer, it becomes clear that what seemed at first a natural rise is in fact a fortress. Its defenses strengthened in recent years. Concentric rings of earthworks wrap around the hill, each topped with wooden palisades. At the entrance, tall timber gates stand open, guarded by men bearing spears and shields. This, you realize, could be the true foundation of Camelot. Not a shining stone castle with soaring towers, but a practical, heavily defended stronghold. It blends the age-old tradition of Celtic hill forts with innovations carried over from Rome, an enduring fortress for a people fighting to survive. At the gates, Bedwyr is recognized at once. The guards straighten, striking their spear butts on the ground in salute. Their eyes pass over you and young Gawain with curiosity. But no challenge is made. Bedwyr's presence alone is enough to guarantee your passage. Inside, the hilltop hums with life. Timber houses with wattle and daub walls cluster along the slopes, while sturdier stone buildings, fashioned from the ruins of Roman sites, stand here and there. At the crown of the hill rises the Great Hall, its thatched roof fitting smoke into the evening sky. All around, people move with purpose, warriors in leather and mail, craftsmen carrying tools, women bearing baskets of food or cloth, children running errands or playing in the open spaces. Unlike the later medieval world, there are no rigid class barriers here. Farmers, fighters, and artisans mixed together, bound by the needs of their lord and their community. And so, your journey through Dark Age Britain brings you to the gates of Cadbury, a fortress that may well be the true foundation of the Arthurian legend. Here, among warriors, farmers, and healers, history and myth stand side by side. The tales of Camelot and Merlin, of Gawain and the Bear of Britain, were not born in glittering castles or in books of romance. They were born in places like this, where survival demanded courage, loyalty, and wisdom. The legend of King Arthur is more than knights in shining armor. It is the story of a people living in uncertain times, holding on to hope and forging a future from the ashes of Rome. And as you look upon this stronghold, you cannot help but wonder how much of the legend was myth and how much was truth. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world behind the legend. If you enjoyed exploring the roots of Arthur's Britain, don't forget to like this video Share it with friends who love history and myth, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. Until next time, may the old wisdom and the new light guide your path.